The city of Jericho had just been destroyed. The walls had crumbled, and the people had fled. But as the Israelites chased them out, God said to Joshua, "Hey, turn your men around and go back into the city." And Joshua said, "Why? They're ours. We're going to kill them all." God said, "No, I want you guys to chase them all the way to the mountains of Perush." So they did. And it says in the text that as they chased them, God rained down hailstones from the sky, so big that more of their enemies died from the hail than from the sword of the Israelites. This is a picture of God getting into the fight. When God gets into the fight, nature itself takes aim. There was a story that I read about a young girl who was at a basketball game with her dad. And as they were walking through the mall afterwards, she said to her dad, "Hey, I want a pair of those shoes that the lady was wearing over there." And her dad said, "Okay, let's go get you those shoes." As they approached the shoe store, the girl got a little bit scared because she knew that her dad didn't have enough money to buy her those shoes. But to her surprise, as they walked into the store, her dad went right up to the counter and said, "How much are those shoes?" The sales clerk said, "Those shoes are $79. Her dad turned around to his little girl and he said, "Do you know how much money it costs to raise a happy child?" And the sales clerk said, "I don't. What does it cost?" And he said, "It costs $79. Then he turned back to the counter and he said, "How much are the shoes?" He said, $79. He said, "That's an incredible investment. Charge it to my account." What Dad went through in that moment was called buyer's remorse. But this is what happens when God gets into the fight. Sometimes when we pray for God to get into our problems, He doesn't part the waters like He did for Moses. Sometimes He just drops hailstones. Sometimes He lets the natural consequences of our actions come against us, so that we will learn the lesson. Sometimes the hailstones are bigger than our sin, so we can be washed clean. Sometimes the hailstones are bigger than our problems, so our problems get solved and we get blessed. So when God gets into the fight, nature takes aim. The mountains themselves become a weapon. The hailstones become a weapon. The stars in the sky become a weapon. Nothing is too big for God to use to solve your problem. Nothing is too small for God to use to get your attention. So if you're looking for a sign that God is getting into the fight, look up in the sky. Look at the mountains. Look at the waves crashing in the sea. Look at the trees swaying in the wind. Because when God gets into the fight, even the skies take aim.